Hello, my name is Rebecca Richardson, but most people call me Becky, and today I thought we could talk about my book series. If you can't tell, I'm quite nervous about this for several reasons. I haven't actually planned this video. I've got like a very brief list of notes on my phone, and I'm just gonna talk and see where we get with it. I will, before we get into it, talk about just a few things I want to sort of cover before we get into the main part of this video. I haven't talked about my book series on here before. Well, I've mentioned it in passing, but I haven't like named them or really talked a lot about it yet, because for a start, it's scary. They're not my favourite thing, especially the first one, which is something that we're going to cover in this video. But of course they are a large part of my writing, and so they do like come up from time to time. But it is daunting, like actually talking about them. Secondly, I didn't want people to think that I started this channel just to like advertise my own books, because for a start I don't want loads of people reading them, to be quite frank, and I didn't want like it to come off like that, as if I'm only here to advertise my own mediocre book series. So I just wanted to cover that. This isn't like a hey, go buy my book. It's like I want to be able to talk more freely about my books as they come up, especially in writing vlogs and things. When like that's something that I'm writing in writing vlogs, I want to be able to talk about it a bit more without kind of feeling a bit like, oh, like I shouldn't be talking about this kind of thing. So I thought we're just going to do a video on it, because I kind of promised myself when I started this channel that if I hit 100 subscribers, I would talk about my book series. So here we are. So in this video, I kind of want to talk about the books, my journey writing them, where I'm at with it now, what they're about, things I would change, just all that kind of stuff. What I've learned from writing this series mainly. To start off, I guess, the name of my series, trilogy, almost, it's called the Fable Warriors, which, for a start, not fan. There was a decision I made when I was like 13. I was like, the series is going to be called the Fable Warriors because in it there's soldiers called Fable Warriors. I don't, yeah, it's like that now. That's just its name now. I tend to refer to them more now by the name of the individual books. The two that are currently available are the first one, Lucifer's Kin, and the second one, Lucifer's Apprentice. I actually, hang on a minute, I have them. Here we go. They're heavy. I don't know why they're so heavy, but book one, Lucifer's Kin. That's the first one, and that's the second one, Lucifer's Apprentice. There you go. There they are. I'll put them like, should I put them like in the background somewhere so you can see them and be like, oh my god, there they are. Wow. The reason I have actual copies of them is because I self-publish these through Amazon, and under that I can make paperback copies. It's a lot of work, not gonna lie, but it's worth it to actually have them there, I think. So yes, these books are available on Amazon, and I am going to leave the links down below in case anybody wants them, but please don't feel you have to get them, please. I feel a bit bad leaving the links to begin with, but I might as well. They're gonna be there, but like... So I'm gonna briefly explain the plot. Should I hold up? Let's hold it up as if like I would any other book in one of these kind of videos. So, The Fable Warriors, Lucifer's Kin by Becky Jacqueline. That's not my last name, I'd like to point out. This is a pseudonym, which is something else we're going to get into at some point in this video. But The Fable Warriors, Lucifer's Kin by Becky Jacqueline follows the protagonist Maxine Sketcher, who is a 16-year-old girl going to school in England in a little town called Applewick, which is entirely fictional. It's set in the north of England in Northumberland. The story follows her as she finds out... Have you seen me trying to summarise my own book and I can't even do it? The story follows Max as she basically finds out that her life and her biological parents in particular are not at all what she has grown up believing. This book, looking back on it, for a start I get very nostalgic because I'm currently writing the third one and I have to keep referring back to the first one, and the characters have come so far, and this really is where it started. It just sort of kicked everything off. The book is purposefully written, and probably the one thing I still like about it is that the plot is done in a way so it feels very like Twilight-esque to begin with. Yes, there are vampires and werewolves, again, that's something we're going to discuss later in the video. But it starts off feeling quite Twilight-esque, quite like high schooly, like, you know, that kind of, like, vibe, I guess. And then it just gradually gets darker, but in a way that you don't particularly notice it until it's too late. I've had lots of people read this and say, oh, it's quite like, you know, like teeny, isn't it? And then they'll go get back to me like a day later and be like, oh my god, what just happened? And I'm like, Yeah, honestly, it's not even bad. That's the thing that gets me. Nothing happens in this that's that bad, but everybody around me now thinks I'm a psychopath. In a more spoilery summary, I guess, the book is about Max as she basically meets these new people who come to town. There's a murder that takes place in the town, which, you know, it's a very small town, nothing ever really happens, so everybody's naturally very shocked that this thing has happened. At the same time of this murder, this new family come into town, and she's naturally very suspicious of these people, and as she kind of looks further into it, things start happening, and she quickly comes to realise through slight supernatural ways, I guess, that the person who caused this murder is actually one of the boys who came into the town called Charlie. Charlie is... I know I shouldn't have favourites, but I think Charlie's my favourite out of the entire series. I shouldn't have favourites, they're all my kids, but I love Charlie so much. Max quickly discovers that Charlie and his brother Christian are vampires, and the two friends that they live with, Will and Elizabeth, are werewolves. Again, this is all something we're going to discuss later. I would like to remind everybody I was 12 when this plot was written. However, that's not the main plot of the story. The main story revolves around just why Max is coming to know all of these things, and that's because during her time discovering all of this, she's been having, like, prophetic dreams, and at one point she hears voices in her head, and she begins to wonder, like, hey, is something up? Something might be going on. So at this point, the new friend group that she discovers have to explain to her who they actually are. These new people, the vampires and werewolves, are actually from another world called Betwixt World. They explain in the book that there are actually 4 worlds, and Betwixt World is between high and low world, high world being like the human world and low world being hell. Betwixt World is a world in between where lots of mythical creatures basically live. It's like a safe haven for them. The symbol is actually what I have tattooed under my collarbone. Again, when I drew that one, I was 12. If I knew people, not just me, were going to get it tattooed on themselves, I probably would have put more effort into it. The job of these people from Betwixt World is to stop demons getting into High World because of a war that is currently taking place between Hell and Betwixt World. And this kind of war is starting to sort of overlap into the other world as Hell kind of sends their demons further abroad, with the knowledge that Betwixt World's then going to have to go and deal with it, and then, like, that'll give them more to do, so they can't deal straight up with Hell. These 4 characters, Charlie, Christian, Elizabeth, and Will, are in High World, in Applewick, because they're trying to kind of control the amount of demons there. There isn't too many. The idea is that there's only like a few in High World. That's why they only need 4 people there, because there isn't much going on, but the activity has been reported in Applewick, and that's why they're there, in summary. It is decided that the reason that Max is facing all of these issues is that because possibly one of the demons has got to her without her knowing, and they have this, like, kind of out there theory that maybe she is turning into a demon. To find out if this is right or not, they take her on this road trip down to the other end of England to see a witch who, long story short, tells her that she is the daughter of Lucifer. The rest of the plot then follows Max trying to get used to her new abilities as they come in, and trying to accept who she actually is and that her parents aren't her real parents, and the rest of it, while also dealing with the more heavy onslaught of demons that are coming into Applewick once they find out that the Princess of Hell, Max, is living there. There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of fires, there's actually quite a lot of death. Yeah, it gets quite heavy quite quickly. The end was definitely my favourite bit to write, and the end is what made everybody cry, which isn't that my goal, really? So yeah, that's basically the plot of the first book, described very, very badly, which I'm the author, I should be able to tell you in better than that what it's about, but like I'm a bit of a mess about it. I won't say too much more about the actual plots just because I'd be here for a while, but as far as the characters go, the characters I'm happy with, other than the fact that some of them are vampires and werewolves. I am genuinely happy with the characters. They are all my children, I love them so much. I just finished the first draft of book 3, and having to sort of close that, knowing that there will be no next time, like I'll be editing it but there won't be any new scenes to write, was like really sad because I'm not ready to say goodbye to them yet. If we're to talk about things I would change if I went back, there is a lot. For context, I was 12 when I first started writing and like planning this book, and I didn't plan it well. So there's a lot of things now that I would like to do with it, and a lot of things that I've thought, oh, I wish we could take it in this direction or that direction, that we can't because of how it was set up. I was 14 when I wrote most of book 1. I was 15 when it was self-published by me. and I was 16 when I wrote book 2. So naturally there is a lot, especially about the first book, that I would change. For instance, I wouldn't have vampires and werewolves in it. They wouldn't be vampires and werewolves, they'd be something else. I would definitely keep the mythical creature side of it, obviously, but vampires and werewolves are so cliche. One of them, to be fair, Charlie, he would probably stay a vampire because of plots needed further on, but also he is an elf as well. He's this hybrid, which is a massive part of his storyline and the prejudice that he faces as the only hybrid in Betwixt World, which is something that we kind of see more of in book 2. So that would definitely stay in, but like, yeah, the whole vampire werewolf thing, it'd probably get changed around. To be honest, as the series went on, I tried to have less of it in there because it's not like the main centre of the plot, which is the only thing that saves it, really. The plot does not revolve around them being vampires and werewolves. The plot would run exactly the same if they weren't vampires and werewolves, to be honest. Obviously, there'd have to be some sort of mythical creature, but it doesn't particularly matter which for the story. It's never, like, a big plot point. So kind of, especially in the second book, I just stopped mentioning as much that they're vampires and werewolves. So, like, you're aware of it, but I'm not mentioning it all the time, so we can just blissfully forget. Other things I would change is the plot of the first book. Honestly, I'm happy with. I would like in the future to go back and rewrite the first book with my writing style now and how I'd go about it now. And there would be characters I'd change, there'd be characters I'd get rid of, but the plot itself, I don't think there's anything major that I'd change because I am happy with it. There are some side characters that I wish I'd given, like, more of a personality, I guess, and developed more, rather than just kind of using them as plot devices. And I would like to shove some foreshadowing in there, obviously, for the future books. There's a lot of foreshadowing for the end of the book, but not for the future ones. I didn't really know, like, what was going to happen in the future books. I think it's quite obvious when you read the first, like, 1 and 2, how much my writing has also changed and how the storyline has developed with what I write. My mum has read the first one, the second one, and she's also read the first 50,000 words of book 3. When she was reading them, I was like, please tell me you can see improvement. Please tell me I'm not writing exactly the same as I was when I was 14. And thankfully, everybody who I've asked that have said that they can actually see an improvement, especially in the characters. I think I took them down a different path that I maybe like originally thought I would. You definitely see all the characters go through one hell of a journey, and I found myself a lot writing book 3, looking back on it and being almost like surprised by how far they've come. Max, especially the main character, she starts off as just like your average teenage girl living her normal life, and by the time we get to the end of book 3, she looks back on her life a lot and thinks about how far she's come as a person. And by that point, you see a lot of her considering actually who she is, because she starts off as Maxine Sketcher, but over time she becomes known as the Devil Child because she's Lucifer's daughter. And a lot of her journey in book 3 especially is her thinking, am I still Maxine Sketcher at all, or has Maxine Sketcher died and I've just become the Devil Child? And when I was having to write those scenes and I was having to think back on her journey especially, it was quite surprising when I look back on what I originally had of her and what I have now. And I think a lot of that is down to, like, what I prefer to see and sort of the direction that I decided I wanted to take it in as I've sort of grown with the series. By the time book 3 comes out, I'll have been writing these books for 5 years, really. I was 12 when I started planning them, and I'll be 18 by the time book 3 comes out. So I have kind of, like, grown up with these books. They sort of follow me. And it is definitely obvious. One thing my mum pointed out is that book 3 is a lot darker. Like, from the off-go, it is, to be fair. Even I was a bit, like, over some bits. But my mum picked it up and she read, like, the first few pages and she was like, this is so much darker than the other two. And I do think that is because I've kind of decided that's where I wanted to go. That's what I want to see my characters doing. And so when you look at the characters and them all looking back on what they once were and what they've become now, especially Max, like I said, I do think it's a very good way for me to look back and see just how much my writing's changed over time, which is obviously good. I'm glad I don't write like I do when I was 12. I also tried to bring more themes into it as time went on. In the first book, there wasn't really any themes at all. Like, nothing like that, like topics that needed to be discussed. There was nothing really there. And then I tried to increase the amount of, like, themes that can be discussed properly as the series went on. However, this is a case of the original world and the planning I did, like, stopping me from being able to explore those further. In book 2, I brought in quite a lot of themes that I'm glad that came up, and I'm looking forward to in future books being able to improve how I deal with such things. But because, like I said, because of the way it was planned, I couldn't necessarily explore things very well. For instance, there was one plot or subplot, I guess, involving a certain character that I would have loved to look further into, but I couldn't really because the entire thing is from the perspective of the main character and it's in first person. If it was in third person, I could kind of explore outside of it a bit more, but because it's all written from Max's perspective in first person, I couldn't then really, unless she was always looking in on these other characters, I couldn't explore outside of that. The third book, to be fair, is split perspective between her and the love interest, but that was really it. I couldn't then look into other characters as well, otherwise it would get incredibly confusing. But I do think that is the main thing that I look at when I think about where it's come over time, is the themes that I've managed to include and the different characters that were introduced in book 2. Obviously not too many new characters are brought into book 3 because it's like the last book of the series, but book 2 we saw a lot of new people come into it who, a lot of them are now people's favourites. People who read the books will say, oh, I love all these new characters. And it was fun to bring new people in with more, like, for a start, more diverse characters, but then also characters who have different stories and different backgrounds and different motives, and to actually be able to explore these new people. It was just very fun. But on a less deep note, there are some things that I just really enjoy about these books. Obviously, there are some things I don't. I found when I talk about it, it tends to come across a bit like I regret writing this series, which I don't at all. I think this series has been a stepping stone I need to help me get other places. I will always look back on this series as like the thing that first started the ball rolling with my writing, and it's true, I wouldn't be where I am, I don't think. I probably wouldn't even be sat in front of the camera if I hadn't started writing, because it was a massive part of me building my confidence towards the like things I enjoy. In fact, I've never taken like writing like lessons or anything, and the way that I tend to learn is by making mistakes and just doing it again, and that's exactly what this series has done for me. I'll write one of the books and then I'll look back on it and I'll think, right, this and this needs changing, all of that went wrong, this you need to do, you know, if there's things that I had to fix because it was just not working out for me, I can look back on it and then I know to change those things for the next book. And then even with the third one, there were things in book 2 that I could then look at and go, right, this and this needs changing this time, and do it again. And so as much as I'm definitely not a great writer, I have definitely improved because writing 3 books has taught me how to like learn from my mistakes and what needs to change. So I'm definitely glad that they exist, and I'm also quite glad that they're online, because I do think, for a start, I always have family members asking about them and I could just be like, hey, you can get them here. But also I like them to be out there as sort of like a sign of like my improvement as well. I won't say too much more because I just wanted this video to kind of explain them and explain my view on them. Basically what I'm saying is, the reason I was mainly scared is because even book 2, the writing in these books are not what I want to represent me now as a writer. Even book 3 won't be, because obviously there's some things I have to stick to because of what was already set up for me. Like now I write in third person, but I have to write this series in first person because that's how it started. So I don't want this series to represent me as a writer now. However, I am very happy that they're out there and work. Instead of representing me now, they sort of show where I began and what I've come from, which again, still not far. It's only been 5 years, I'm only 17, but you know, one day, you never know, in like 20 years time I might be a best-selling author and then people will be like, hey, that's where she started, that's like the aim. So yeah, I don't want to say too much, but I just wanted to quickly explain the books and my opinions on them and why they're still up. But I also wanted to make it quite clear that if you choose to read these, don't judge me on it, because I judge myself on it all the time. You know, there's even like grammar mistakes and things now that I can't actually reread the first one, because every time I pick it up, I cringe, because I'm like, this is bad. I hate it. I cannot physically pick up that book and read it, which everybody else I know says it's great. That's the thing. Even people I don't know, because obviously family members are gonna say it's great, aren't they? But even other people are like, yeah, it's great, you know, it's got good reviews. It's just me being like, not a fan of this at all. You know, my dad even saw someone reading it on a plane once, which I think is like, I wish I'd been there, because that would be the most surreal experience of my life, seeing somebody reading my book on a plane. But yeah, I feel like I've said but yeah, also yeah, so many times in this video. That's it. I'm just gonna call it a day there. I've said my piece. I've described the books. I haven't really gone into depth on the characters because we'd be here forever, because I never shut up about them, to be honest. I love them all very, very much. So yeah, again, that's it. We're calling it a day. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of whatever this video was. Honestly, I don't know what this was at all. I probably haven't promoted my own series very well, but if you want to read Lucifer's Kin by Becky Jacqueline, or the second one, Lucifer's Apprentice, over there, read the first one first, obviously. They are available on Amazon, and I will leave the links down below. The paperbacks are £10.99 and £8.99. I don't know what it is in dollars. I didn't choose those prices. I'm going to quickly point out that was down to Amazon. I know they're expensive, but I got to choose the Kindle ebook prices, and the ebook price is £1 for both books, which again, I don't know what that is in dollars. I'm assuming it's like either $1 something or $2 something, not much. But I will say now that the formatting on the ebooks is like hideous. I don't know what happened with it, but same story, just interesting punctuation. There's like missing speech marks. There's probably missing speech marks in this as well, but it's like a whole thing. Please don't think that I don't know how to use speech marks. I'm just bad at editing apparently. But yeah, again, promoting them really well. If you want to read my absolute hot mess of a series, they are available on Amazon, and of course it does also support me to an extent. I get a small cut of the price. I do also talk about these on my Facebook page. This is something we have to talk about now. I'm like in the intro and I'm still continuing, so we're just going to keep talking. I also have a Facebook page that is under the name Becky Jacqueline, which we didn't even talk about that. Why am I trying to do an outro when we haven't talked about that? This is a mess. Right, that, quickly. God, Jesus, I swear to God I'm usually more organised than this. I'm just a mess over this. The reason that these books are Becky Jacqueline is because it's a pseudonym, because I didn't want these connected to my future work, which I want to do under my name, Rebecca Richardson, which is why this channel is called Rebecca Richardson. Once all these books have been out, I will be moving my other writing social medias over to Rebecca Richardson also, just so I can keep the two like connected but like disconnected, so I won't be like, oh, Rebecca Richardson, I'll type that in the future and these are going to come up. They won't, hopefully. But yeah, I have a Facebook page called Becky Jacqueline, which I update sometimes when I remember Facebook exists. I usually put like extracts of the books on there and things, and like links to buy them and information about when they'll be coming out, that kind of thing. There's also a few reviews on there and stuff, so you can find them there. And also on my Instagram page, which is also under the name Becky Jacqueline. And I am planning on using that more just in general for this channel. I am going to add that to the top of my channel now. If you look at the links, it should say my Twitter and Instagram, which is Becky Jacqueline, because of this. But that will be the Instagram that I'm planning on using going forward. So yeah, that's where you can find these and where you can find me, where I'm talking about these. Yeah, that's a thing. Now, actual outro. I swear to God, this is the actual outro. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you've made it to the second outro of the video, apparently. I just told you about the books. Please don't feel you have to buy them. This has been a mess. I'm so sorry. The next video hopefully won't be such a mess, and so I will see you very soon. Bye!